Hello, and this video implements iteration number 3, adding new contact. In the past, we created this in the storyboard, added our navigation controller, and added the table view controller for the main screen, added our contact data source, and we made the connection. Before we proceed and adding the extra add new contact, I want to walk you through a little bit the different options we have when we select a navigation controller or a view controller. So if you select in the navigation controller, you can see under the attribute inspector different options for the size, the orientation, the status bar, the top bar, and the bottom bar. And you can choose inferred is it's inferred from uh, the application and the operating system. In the navigation bar, you can select the you can add a different type of a toolbar in the bottom. You can say I don't want any. You can take it out completely. You can select to show the toolbar or not. You can select the size, so there are different sizes that are available that you can set your navigation controller to it depending on the device you want to build for. Um, or you can just infer it from the setup that we had. I also mentioned before the initial view controller, where you can determine that this is the initial view controller for the application. So in the navigation controller that we have here, you can also set this information. It carries on from the navigation controller, but you can also set it in your table view controller. What we need to add is to add a navigation to a new controller. So we'll use a bar button item and navigate the bar button item to the right button. Before I do that, in addition to the attribute inspector and what you see, if you go to the connection inspector, and you can see all the existing connections that the navigation controller has, and you can see automatically it has a data source and a delegate connection to the table view. So the table view comes embedded in the controller, and the connection as a data source and a delegate is already made. Back in module number 3, when we added a picker view, which also displays a list of information, we had to make the connection as a data source and a delegate ourselves. So here it's already existing. It's also connected to the navigation controller, and it is connected to the table view as with a view outlet that you have. If you select the toolbar, you can also see the connections for the toolbar. So the navigation controller has already a back button, bar button item, left and right bar button item, which once you make a connection to a bar button item, you will see that a connection is made here, or you can make a connection to other buttons and place them as your right, left, or back. You can also set that from the code, as we will do with the edit. So if you proceed with the optional parts of this project, I will use the left bar button item for the edit, and I will set that from the code, as you will see. So here we'll just add an item, and go to if we add an item and you select and we go to the attribute, select the item and go to the attribute. So there are different styles, and I will use the add item, which give you that plus. Then we need to add the table view controller. So we need to add another table view controller here, and connect the bar button item by selecting it and click Control and drag from the bar button item to the control. There are three types of segue, so we're going to use a modal segue. The push segue give you a back button. The modal segue will give you is not going to give you an automatic back button, but will allow you to set up your cancel and save button as needed. So that's the segue, and once you add a segue, it's always a good practice to identify it. So we're gonna give this segue a name, add contact segue. It is managed by the default library class, or you can make your own class if you would like to have a custom segue. In our table view controller, we will need to create our own custom controller and attach to this new controller, table view controller. So I'll go to the plus, add file, Coca Touch class, and I need this as a table view controller, and I will call it add new. So the add new table view controller will be a custom controller to support the new screen that we just added. And it is based on the UI table view controller class. I will save it inside the group and save it. So here is the add table, new table view controller. And I'll switch back to the storyboard and connect the new controller to that custom class that we just added. So in the identity inspector, while selecting the new screen, click the drop down and you'll see the add new table view controller. So select that for the new screen. Right. In the new screen for the table view, the new screen, I think I better show this with the document outliner. The table view controller group, inside it, there is a table view. And the most important thing you specify in a table view is the content. There are two types of content settings, dynamic prototype and static cells. When you don't know how many cells will be, then you use dynamic prototype. But if you do, then you use static cells. So in the original or in the main screen, we did not know how many cells are in the address book, so we chose dynamic prototype. But in the add new, I know that there should be 3 cells, or if you use more details in a contact, then it will be more. I know I need to have a text field for first name, last name, and email. So since I know exactly how many cells I need, I'll choose static cells. When you choose static cells, you specify, we are still in the table view, how many sections you need. The style of the section, you can have plain like that or grouped. When you do grouped, it gives you a header and a footer. You can do separation of the cells, so you can do a single line or a dashed line. You can specify a color for those lines. And you can go through the other options here and select them as you would like. So that's in the table view. So in the table view, we set how many sections, the content type, the style of each section. Inside the table view, since we added a section, there is a table view section. You specify in the section how many rows. So I need 3 rows because it's first name, last name, and email. You can specify a header, so we can say enter new contact, and in the footer you can say cancel or save to return. So you can add a header and a footer for each of the sections that you create inside your table view. Then inside the section there are cells. Now that I created 3 cells, each cell is different than the other. Inside the cell, you can specify the style. All these styles represent or add a label to the cell. So if you just want to display something, you can use one of those styles like we did in the address book or domain. If you use dynamic prototype, you must specify a reuse identifier for the cell. If the cell gonna be selected, you can specify behavior. If the cell will be selected to lead to something else, you can specify something here, and we'll leave all of this as it is. Inside the cell, there is a content view. The content view is a view, as you can see here in the attribute inspector, and you can see here on the top of your storyboard. It's a view. A view is a rectangle area that can hold other components. You can specify a background for the view, so we can put a light background here if you would like. You can have each cell with a different background color. You can change the alpha if you would like. And you can add components to the view. So I would like to add a text field component. So I'll add a text field component to the cell. And it asks you, you can put a placeholder. So I'll put a placeholder in the text field. And we dealt with text fields in previous modules before. So this will be the same. So I'll add here, enter first name. And adjust to the size of the text field. You can also adjust the font color, and the background image or the border styles. I'll add a clear button appear while editing. You can also set capitalization if you would like certain capitalization. Since it's a first name, I will capitalize the word. This is a name, so I don't want any corrections and I don't want a spell check. You can specify a keyword type and a return key if you want to activate. I'll use the default keyboard. So that's the first cell. Then we go to the second cell, which is another content view. You can specify the same style, and inside the cell there is the content view, and you can set colors for the content view if you would like. And I'm choosing ugly colors here. I just want to show you that you can use different settings for each one of the cells. Maybe I can make it a little bit lighter. And then add an address book, a text field I mean. And I'm going to enter a placeholder and set that the way you would like for the size. And likewise, no capitalization. Actually, I want word capitalization, no spell check, no corrections, and same keyboard. Then we go to the third one, and we'll do the same. And add a text field and enter email address. And likewise, no capitalization here, no corrections, no spell check. And in the keyboard, I believe there's one special for email address, so we will use that email address keyboard. So this is the setting the the view. Since we're entering information here and I need to retrieve that information, I need to connect them all to my controller as an outlet. So I'll bring the assistant editor. And the assistant editor takes us to the address book, so that's not the correct one. I need to go to the add new and select each one of the text field and add it as an outlet to the add new controller, text first name, and add the second one, text last name, and then add the third one, text email address. So this adds all three of them and sets the view here. The other item, you notice that the table view controller did not come with a toolbar. So if I want to add an item, a bar button item, I don't have a toolbar to add the bar button item. So so we can add a navigation bar here and see if we can add the bar button item to it, and it's not allowing us to do that. So it is perhaps in the Segue. We can also add the navigation bar ourselves, but it pushes, so we can, and I'm playing around here, so here, so I added that. So that's my navigation controller. Here is my table view, and I can add a navigation bar to the bar that we added. Navigation item, and the bar button item. So we'll add a bar button item first, and this will be my cancel button. You can add it as an image if you would like, and then the other one will be the save. And we can add here a new contact. So in the table view controller, we added this navigation item, and inside it we added two bar button items, the cancel and the save. So when the user click cancel, we need to connect back to the address book. And when we connect back to the address book, we need to dismiss. When the user clicks save, we want to connect back to the address book and save the contact information. So let's handle the cancel first. So to go back to the address book, we want to do what we call the exit segue. To do an exit segue, it means that we connect the button to an action inside the previous or the main controller that or the controller that this will exit to. So if you see how we can do that, so we go back to the controller for the address book. So this is the address book controller, and we're going to add a cancel segue, cancel action for the cancel unwind segue. So we'll say that it has to be a connection, so an IB action, and it is a function. We're gonna call it cancel, any name we want. The one thing that must exist is this parameter. So we're gonna call it a segue, and it is a UI storyboard segue. So an exit function to connect to the exit segue must be an IB action and must have a UI storyboard segue. So if you go back to the storyboard, select your cancel button, control and drag to exit, you will see the action segue available to you as an exit segue. It's basically say when the user click cancel, exit that controller by following the instructions in the cancel function that we just created. So we can make that connection, and you see here an unwind segue is appeared in the document outliner. Nothing appeared in the storyboard, but it appeared in the document outliner, and it has an identifier, so we're gonna identify this and say cancel segue. Every segue you create, especially if you intend to use prepareForSegue, should have a cancel segue like this. So we go back to the address book, and we'll add another one for the save IB action function, save segue UI storyboard segue, and now I can connect that segue to the save button. So click save, control to exit, and you see both of them here. So we'll select the save segue, and here it is appeared, so we also give it a name, save segue. Good. So on the cancel segue, what do we want to do? We want to dismiss the view controller. So in the segue, we want to issue the command dismiss self.dismiss view controller. This function cancel or dismisses the view controller that was presented modally by the view controller. Do you want to be animated, false or true? So we'll say true, animate. Upon completion, do you want to define any action? So we don't want to define any action, so it is nil. On the save, we also gonna cancel. So we're gonna dismiss on the save as well, but we're gonna have to do a few things first. So on the save, the first step will be to retrieve the new contact, add the new contact to the data source, and refresh the table view, and then dismiss the control, the view control. So to retrieve the new contact exists in the other class. So we have a view controller here that contains what the user entered, first name, last name, email address, and then there's another controller, the address book, that needs that. You can give connection to the first name, last name, and email, or you can wrap them in a contact and connect a contact there, and that's what I will do. So I'll go to the add new contact and create a new class, a new variable here, say var contact, and then this contact, I'm gonna call it new contact, and it will have the type contact. You can choose to initialize it to anything or leave it uninitialized. I'll probably initialize it. So we'll do the default initialization for contact. Then what we want to do is we have a lot of code here that is primarily working if you choose dynamic prototype. So we don't need that code. So it says here mark table view data source, but I don't need any of this because the new controller is a static table view, or the static cells. So all the code that's marked with the table view data source, all of this code is not needed. And then until navigation, we're gonna need this navigation. So we'll delete that code. And the code that's added the template for the Xcode template is very nice. It gives us all of these suggestions. So in the navigation, the prepare for Segue, every time the user will click cancel or save, they initiate a segue. Before the segue is initiated, that function prepare for segue is called. So what do I want to do in this prepare for segue? I want to, if it is save segue, initialize the contact with the information that the user set, which exists in the text fields. So I check first if the segue dot identifier, which is a string, if that identifier is save segue, if that is the segue that's being called. And to remind you, in the save segue, we put the identifier to be save segue. So this is the name that I'm testing. So I'm saying do that stuff only if it's save segue. If it's a cancel segue, don't do anything. So if it's a save segue, we want to retrieve the first name. So we'll say the new contact. We're going to change the new contact to be a new contact initialized using first name, last name, and email. So where do I get the first name, last name, and email? I get them from the text first name, text email, and text last name. So I say text first name dot text, and then I need the exclamation mark, text last name dot text, and the exclamation mark, and then text email address dot text, and the exclamation mark. So that assigns, if the segue is a save segue, now my new contact has the information that the user entered. So I can switch back to the address book, and in my save segue retrieve that new contact. So I will first retrieve the reference to the source. So I'll say let source equal, and then use the segue to get the source view controller as add new contact table view controller. So I retrieve the controller that launched that source, and then use that source to add to the data source. So I'll say data source dot add contact, and I haven't added that, so I need to add a function in the data source first. So we'll go to our data source class. We have a function to count, a function to retrieve a contact at index. We need a function to add contact, and this function will receive a contact C, and I will call it, maybe I will call it here contact C, and this will be a contact. And what I need to do is to add that to my array. So contacts that add object, and add the that object. So every time a new contact is added, we add it to our array. So back to the address book. So I can now say data source dot add contact, and where do we get the contact from? We're gonna get it from source dot new contact. And we are getting something. Right, it wants us to put the title here. Then refresh the table view. So there is a variable already connected called the table view, returns the table view, and then we say reload data, and this will, when you call reload data on the table view, it will reinforce calling the number of sections, the number of rows, and the cell for row at index. So all the data will be reloaded, and then finally dismiss the view controller with animation and do nothing after it is dismissed. So that's the cancel and the save. So let's test it. So first we go to the new controller, and we are not seeing the cancel and save button. So to solve the issue of the bar not showing here, if we select the table view controller and embed that in a navigation controller, another one, so embed in navigation controller, that will facilitate or allow us to use the power of the navigation controller to manage the back and forth and showing that toolbar here. So now let's run that. And so now we can see the cancel, and if we click cancel, it goes to the cancel function and cancels the controller. If we add, then we can enter information and type information, and I want to toggle the keyboard. And oops. Do that, and actually I already have a contact, so just add another one. Notice how the capitalization is taking place, and there is no corrections or spelling check because we took those features out. So we added a first name, a last name, and an email address. Then if we click save, you can see that the list is showing with the last name first and then the first name. You can select the cell. Currently it doesn't do anything, but in the next iteration, when you select a cell, you'll be able to see all the details of that contact. And that will conclude iteration number 3.